Grant Daniel now.
It's Grant Daniel.
The gold lady this year. Oh my God, it's Grant Daniel.
And our mom, Chezzi Daniel. She's really crazy.
It's all true.
It's All True, the podcast with Grant and Chezzi Daniel.
And George.
And Giorgio. Oh, yeah.
And you made it. You're alive. You
I'm
survived.
still
You're
alive, bitches.
Well, he came back with an infected finger
Yep.
and a potential cracked rib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Was the infected finger from glass breaking from the whiskey or rum that you were drinking out there?
Let's call it not risky or rum. It's a life-saving device. Thank you when you're in the middle of the desert. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not for just general consumption.
How much scotch did
not for
you
pleasure.
drink?
I drank a litre of scotch.
Did you?
Yep.
Holy moly. How'd you fit that in? Well, mind you, it was pretty cold, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's mate, I seriously would have died in my sleep had I not drank that scotch because it dropped into the minuses. And like I said previously, I had a paper-thin sleeping bag to fit on my motorbike. And I just shivered the whole night as ants and bugs sort of came in and just crawled all over my face. I was like I was a living corpse.
You would have loved that.
It was good fun, though. So if you're new to the episode, you don't know what the hell we're talking about. I just rode across the Simpson Desert on a motorcycle.
And what happened with the rib?
Well, that happened before I even got to the Simpson. So it was a really good start. I was following Adrian. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, wrong sound of it.
I was following my mate Adrian on his motorbike, going into Birdsville, which is sort of the last town just before the start of the Simpson. On the way into Birdsville, he spits up a big rock from his back tyre accidentally at speed, hits me in the rib really badly, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's done a lot of damage."
But you got a chest plate on.
Yep, because sort of like a rubber thing on the front. So without that, it would have probably gone through me.
So it's cracked your rib, cracked the chest plate, and broken the strap on your your backpack.
my backpack that I was wearing. And then the first fall I had, and you have heaps when you're in the sand because it's so damn hard, I fell off and just took it right in the rib that the rock hit, and it was like, oh, that's done a lot of damage now. And it was painful. But
And were you thinking, shit, I haven't even started the proper Simpson desert ride?
oh no, this is all the signs are saying, turn back now, bro, turn back now.
Don't do it.
But my mate Adrian is a very persuasive bloke, and he would have cried had I turned back. But mind you, if I'd have had mobile service out there, I would have called a friggin' helicopter with a gigantic net underneath to just pick me up on my motorbike and take me home because it was that hard.
Did you meet some weird characters out there? Like, I know whenever I've gone to, say, Lightning Ridge for a bit of, opal mining, you come across some really interesting characters.
I forget you go out and do that.
Yeah.
The wackiest people in the world tend to live out in those areas. If you are, say, wanted by the police in 3 states,
That's usually it.
maybe you've committed a murder, maybe you're just trying to outrun the tax man or an ex-wife. They're all sort of hiding underground out in those places.
You'll find them there.
So did you find any in the Simpson Desert?
Not many people. Most people look like they're from Wolf Creek. It's
that's
a bit
comforting.
scary.
I saw some people were commenting saying, it was good to see you. Thanks for the photo or thanks for the chat. Was that in the desert?
Mate, I was so remote. This is the central part, most isolated part of Australia, possibly even the world. This is how remote it is, right? And I fall off. I go over one of the first sand dunes, and there's some other bikes just happen to be behind us that going on a ride as well.
Spewing. How embarrassing.
I've fallen in front of them all. They've all had to stop. I'm now lying on my back, pinned down by my motorbike and stuck on my leg, and they're thankfully there. And then they help me up, and I go, "Oh, thanks, mate." And they go, "Bloody Grant Daniel, what are you doing out here?" I still have your helmet on. Like, what?
They just recognised you from your riding.
Well, I think he got up
from
to
you falling.
He got up to help me because I had pink hand guards on my motorbike, which is a joke by Adrian, and I think he thought he was helping a chick. He's like, "Oh yeah, a hot chick in the desert. I'll help her out." But it was
classic.
It was me.
They obviously don't listen to the It's All True podcast because they would have known that you were out in the desert if they were loyal listeners.
But some people did stop you and say that they listened, didn't they?
Yeah, quite a few actually. It was quite surprising. I didn't think that anyone out there was listening to this little old podcast of ours.
So hello to everybody out at the Simpson Desert listening and
one
Birdsville and
One bloke even pulled me aside just to say how much he enjoys listening to it. We had a great laugh around the campfire. We were riding past them. They were the only ones on the side of the road. We stopped purely because we knew that they had cold beer. And then we went over for a chat and they gave us a beer. And afterwards, he just pulled me aside. He said, I just want to say how much your podcast touches me. He goes, I know you guys go into some deep personal stuff and he goes, you're an emotional guy, but just, he goes, for those of us who've had a little struggle in our lives and battled in a few areas, it's so nice to hear that kind of candid openness. It does us blokes a lot of good.
wow.
Yeah, and this is the middle of nowhere. So, yeah.
wow, that's a personal
nice.
review.
Very heartwarming, yeah.
Yeah.
Not expecting those kind of chats out there.
No.
Did you ever see a mirage? Did you start seeing things at any point?
Mate,
A big bottle of scotch.
I now know how people die in the desert because mirages are a real thing.
Did you see one?
Everywhere. Everywhere
Really?
you look, mate. If I was an explorer, I would have died day 3.
I thought that you only saw mirages if you were dehydrated.
No. Yeah, it's not a mind trick. It's you're looking at it and it actually looks like a body of water in the distance. If I was walking, I would have been walking for days looking for this body of water, and it just would have got further and further away.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was sort of a bit of a joke in cartoons, but it's absolutely. Yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh, I thought it was if you were really dehydrated that you would start to hallucinate and...
No.
Could it have been the litre of scotch?
I might have been a little dehydrated from that.
Dehydrated?
But I kept seeing rivers everywhere. And I'm going, oh, hey, look at that, Adrian, isn't that beautiful? Look at that. When you get to the top of a sand dune, look at that river over there. He goes, bro, we're in the desert. That ain't no river. And I was like,
So was he seeing them too?
Yeah. They just, the shimmering heat off the ground creates an effect that looks exactly like a lake at a distance.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And Chezzi, while GD was out in the Simpson Desert, were you like just checking your phone every second of the day, just hoping he's got service, hoping he's okay?
No. In fact, I had an extremely busy week. It turned out to be really hectic, and Paul Grant was calling me 3 times one night from a public phone, and I kept hanging up because I was on another call driving through snow through the mountains trying to get Sailor to Homebush to do a athletics carnival. Yeah, and then I get this message, hi, it's Grant. I'm trying to call you from a public phone. Can you please answer?
Because there's no service where at the other side of Simpson Desert, but there was an old public phone there, and you're allowed, like, they're free now.
I know. That's so
there's the only way I could call you, and you were just barring my call, which was tough.
Yeah.
Like,
it was coming through from a private number, and I was driving through, like, I've never seen snow and icy roads in the mountains like it.
How's Australia though? Like, I'm in the desert and you're in snow.
I know.
Like, what a
insane.
wacky joint we live in.
All on the same island.
All on the same island.
Exactly.
And it was so snowy and the icy conditions were so bad that the next morning, the bus of athletes that were heading down to do the same athletics carnival that were going with Sailor was sitting behind a truck that jackknifed and blocked the roads. So none of the athletes got through. So it was like, actually there was 2 buses that didn't get through. So there was about 7 kids down in Homebush. Their parents like drove them down the night before. And so they had to represent the school.
So Sailor, who was going down for one event, ended up having to do all the events on behalf of all the other kids that couldn't get there.
And can I just say, she'd
never thrown a discus in her life.
No, and she can't like run, but she gave it her best. But they're on starting blocks, and you know, there's all these things that we have no idea. We're not an athletic family. They're like, oh, have you got your spikes? Your what? What are spikes? Your shoes. Oh no, we don't have any spikes. Do we need them?
Asics runners.
They're like,
my volleys in the back.
You'll slip over if you wear those. So she had to run. So her little arms were like flapping around. You know, she was doing like the full dramatic run. She was exhausted.
And you've seen me, mate. you've seen me in the flesh. I don't make big kids. My kids don't have long legs. They're not. They're going to take 3 steps to everyone else's one.
Well, that's what I felt so bad when they said she's actually made it through to high seas, which is the representative like for long jump. And
that's huge.
I asked them to go back and check the results. I was like, are you sure?
Our kid,
Sailor Daniel, can you just go back and check the results?
Long jump?
Yeah.
What?
And they checked it and they came back and they said, no, she definitely got through. And I was like, was everybody sick that day?
I thought maybe one of the bullies might have thrown her that far.
And so anyway, Sales was, quite upset, but she did really well in long jump. Turns out she's got a long jump.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
Bloody hell.
Fantastic.
So massive day. And then she nearly chopped the top of her finger off, the following day when Grant was trying to call again. So sorry, I've just realised we've got a guest coming up and we've got some reviews that we have to read quickly.
We're going to do those now?
I think so.
Okay.
Very quickly.
All right. So this is from a nurse. So when this podcast goes to air, I think most of New South Wales might be in the midst of a nursing strike. And they just wanted to say, a nurse just reached out from our local area called James. Absolutely love the podcast. I make sure I tune in and catch up with every episode for the laughs, the tears, and the overall great vibes It's All True gives us. I'm a nurse from Bathurst. And you may have heard that nurses and midwives are striking this week. Our fight remains for patient safety in the form of nurse-to-patient ratios. We need our government to hear up and take action now. They just really wanted to say, look, we just want the community to know that this fight is for them. And as long as you can get that message out and let everyone know that it's not that we want to abandon you or we're leaving you in the lurch, but we need to improve things. So the care that you get in hospitals, is up to standard and safer. So thanks for reaching out, James, and letting us know. And on behalf of us and to all the nurses out there, you are an incredible bunch of angels. And thank you for the unbelievable work that you continue to do in very trying circumstances. So we're right behind you, and thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, especially to James, who I can picture who you are, and I know that you've helped Grant several times when he has gone to hospital.
I go to hospital a bit every now and then.
So you're one of the ones who's taking up all the bloody numbers and the ED.
They are accident. They're not deliberate.
Just joking.
But James has done a great job of looking after me.
He has.
So
Real
thank you,
legend.
James.
Best podcast ever, Granny 1010. I've been an avid listener since the first episode. I have had an awful 16 months. I lost my partner of 35 years last April, then my mum this February, now caring for my dad with aggressive bladder cancer. If that's not enough, I've been evicted from my home I've rented for the past 33 years. Thank goodness for this podcast to give me relief from it all. I've laughed so hard and cried with you too. I could forget everything for an hour and it feels so good. I love the both of you and George, of course. You guys help so many people. Just keep doing what you're doing. The world needs you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending all good things to you, Lee.
Bloody hell, that's beautiful.
So sorry, Lee. That's
Is it a rough run?
Yeah, really rough luck.
We're
Yeah.
glad it gives you a bit of a giggle along the way, the podcast.
We'll make sure that Grant's funnier this episode.
Jesus Christ. Well, if I can't be, this next person can, because he's one of the all-time
I think
great
George has got a review. Sorry.
legend of Australian media, and
Yes.
I'll announce who that is after George has his.
Sorry.
his review.
No, look, I'll just quickly jump in because this review is just as important as the first two, guys. Crackers01, titled Happiness, 5 stars. Love this podcast. It instantly lifts my mood when I'm having a crappy day. Very funny. No holes barred conversations with 3 intelligent and self-deprecating people.
Whoa.
I think I may have a crush on Chezzi and her zest for life. Keep it up, guys. P.S. Would love to hear more about Chezzi's HG journeys and how she coped. I'm a HG survivor as well. That's to do with pregnancy, right?
It is. Yeah.
Is that hyperemesis? Is that what she's talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a few people actually ask about that. So,
Well, let's do a potty on it.
yeah, well, it makes my stomach turn thinking about it. But yeah, it's a struggle.
You got a lot to share. You've come a long way.
Okay, back
Back
to
to
your
my
intro.
intro
Sorry.
that I-
Unpause on the intro.
I rolled a little too early. One of the great all-time legends of Australian entertainment, Larry Endmur, a great friend. He's just released a new book. It's called Happy as Larry Endmur. It's an amazing read. He's a hilarious bugger. You going to call
No,
him?
I was going to say, can you pass me the book and I'll
okay.
hold it up for the YouTube.
Yeah, righto. He's been somewhat of a mentor of mine. His career was always just in front of mine. I guess I was sort of the next generation following through on his coattails. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And people say a lot about people in the media about just being egotistical wankers. And a lot of that is true, but definitely not for this bloke. He's a remarkable human being, one of the most generous, kind, and sweet humans. And he's just a funny guy to boot. So we might give him a little bit of a buzz. And I'm glad I'm getting all this stuff out before I chat to him, because if I'm this nice to him, he'll vomit. Because that's just not that's not the basis of our friendship.
Hey, Bumhead,
Not how we roll.
plenty of pictures in here for you to colour in. Loser. Thanks for always being happy at the messages that they write to each other.
We send fun texts to each other all the time.
Cracks me up, especially when...
All right. Here he is.
Hello.
Hello, is that baby John Burgess?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's his executive assistant. How may I help you?
Larry, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Hey,
Yay!
we're potting.
Mate, thank you so much for making time to join us to talk about your wonderful book and career today. I managed to say lots of lovely words about you in the lead up to calling you because I couldn't bring myself to do it to your actual ear hole. Because that's not how we roll as mates.
I was just reading the inscription in the front of the book, Laz, saying, hey, Bumhead.
Yeah.
Just in case people don't know how you two relate to each other. You're kind of like brothers from different mothers.
Yeah. He reminds me of I never had a brother. But if I was going to have a brother, it would be a cheeky, naughty, farting little thing like him, I suppose.
Well, it's definitely a good description for Grant.
Well,
Yeah.
I like what you wrote. There's enough pictures in here for you to colour in, which is lovely and funny because, funnily enough, your doodle work is your best work.
Yeah. But, it's funny. The last time I heard that, I was in court. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
So I can't believe you got
already.
a book, my friend. I've been
I know.
a massive admirer of the way you go about life, the way you go about your career. I've worked in your shadow for many a decade, and it's been a privilege to watch your work. But you and I wouldn't classify as massive readers. So when you wrote this thing, what was the motivation? Why?
Well, it's funny. I had a bunch of these stories. You and I both do these corporate gigs every now and again, and I had a bunch of sort of TV stories that I thought I'll put all those down in a book because I'm celebrating 40 years I've been in the media 40 years this year, so I thought I'll put all these scribbles down, these silly stories of crazy people messing up on Price is Right and silly game show stories down. And just during COVID, I was putting out some sort of nostalgic old pictures on Instagram. And they're the things that got real engagement in the last couple of years. And it just sort of led me down a path of thinking people want that stuff. It's a really good measure of what people are engaging with and what people are liking at the moment. And I just thought maybe just with COVID, let's try and do something that'll put a smile on people's faces. We haven't had much to smile about in the last couple of years. So I started to write these stories. I went up to Mum's house and got a couple of old boxes of photos, started digging through the photos and thinking, I remember that. I remember that story. I remember that chapter. I remember that time on the boat with my dad. I remember my sisters and I at the beach at that swimming pool. And it just brought, I was constantly smiling and thinking they were good days. They were happy days. They were simple times. And maybe I'll start to write a few of these stories down. And that's where it started.
Look,
I love it.
That sounds wholesome and lovely and admirable and et cetera, et cetera. But when I read like just the names of each chapter, this is just part one. KFC and bleeding nipples is the title of one. Young man, get your hand off my balls is another one. Paul Hogan made me spew but saved my life. And this is all just in part one.
Too much tongue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Too much tongue.
Too much tongue. Yeah. I
had more fun. I had more fun coming up with the titles for the chapters than I think I did anything else.
They're so clever, and they're so.
Oh, thank you.
And the what I loved about the book is that it's you're just so bloody humble, and the way it's written is just the way you speak, which is beautiful because you've kind of spoken about your TV life and and your early starts from very humble beginnings with your beautiful mum Faye and your sisters, and when I was reading it, just picturing you with your sisters having like ribbon taped to the floor to separate bedrooms in this tiny house, and just it cracked me up like. Yeah.
Thanks, Chezzi. Oh, look, and the humble stuff, and Grant, you've got this. This is why we're mates. This is why we're mates, because I think we both feel this way about the business, and the humble stuff is inflicted upon us. It's the way you have to be to survive in this business, because you never know what's going to happen next. Some of my contracts, and it talks about this in the book, some of my TV contracts have been for 2 episodes of a show. Yeah. So if you're getting ahead of yourself and you're thinking, I'm the king of the world, I'm awesome at this and I'm going to be around forever, it's a foolish posture to have in this business. So I think I've worked on trying to stay humble, but also the business has worked on keeping me humble by being the most axed man in television.
Now, I did see that. Is it true 20 times you've been axed? Is this true? Because Grant and I had a debate over this, didn't we?
Yes. And in fact, I think I wrote them all down one time. We were doing this thing on Weekend Sunrise, and I think it was 22 shows, and I think that was before Celebrity Splash. So it's probably 23. but what that means is, because in saying, I've been around for a long time and I've been on every different network, on every different style of show, but in saying that, that's the net result of being axed so many times, because it would have been nice to have one show for 20 years, but that hasn't been my past. Yeah. It's been this up and down roller coaster of axings and quick, some of them are good, some of them a couple of years, the main event, great show. And then Family Double Dare axed after the first episode. Celebrity Dog School axed after 3 episodes. Very Best of the World's Worst Drivers axed after too long. It should have been axed much earlier. But but all these things, and I added them up. Surprise Wedding. I think, Grant, you did number 2 after I was axed from number 1.
I did. Yes.
I don't want to say it because you were cheaper, but maybe it was. I don't know.
I definitely was, because the one I learned a couple of principles early on, and one is be good. If you can't be good, be cheap, and that worked. But like you say, the humbleness. Because you say that's what you need to be in this game, but not many are, to be honest. There's a lot of people, and maybe it's changing a little bit now, but there's a lot of people who thought being on television made you better than everybody else. You definitely don't have that. And you're aware of the fragility of it. And because you're aware of the fragility of it, you're so appreciative when you do have it. Is that something that was instilled in you as a younger bloke? Because they were humble beginnings. How humble?
Well, they were, yes. I mean, yes. Before getting into the media, which I never felt like I'm going to be on TV and I'm going to be a TV host and I'm going to be famous. That was never on my list of things to do. I just wanted to go surfing. So I started work as a copy boy working overnight at a newspaper, so I could surf during the day. My next choice of job, and I swear to you, was a garbo, because I had a mate who was a garbo. He was getting up at 4 a.m. He'd work till 9:30 and spend the rest of the day in the surf, and he was getting good money, and that's all I wanted to do. So, yes, absolutely humble beginnings with none of this. I think in the early days, particularly, I didn't have any great ambition. I never got up and went, one day I'm going to be a TV host. I've never thought that. And then reading the book, Chezzi, I know if you've been through it, you'll see that it's just kind of one happy accident after another. Great, it's all great.
Yeah.
But it's all those axings and all those kicks in the guts that not only keep you humble, but as you say, Grant, exactly right, mate, just make you really appreciative of what we've got. This morning show has been going for 15 years.
Yeah. And number one the whole time.
Number one the whole time. And that's incredible in television, because it's like 100 human years, 15 years. So I'm very, very grateful to that and to Kylie and the team and very appreciative of that. But that's the first time, like that's the longest run anything ever. So you think about that. I've grown up in this business and then I've come, Sylvie's come along, the kids have come along, there's been a mortgage and I'm doing shows that last 1 week or 3 weeks or 4 months. There's never really been any certainty in my life kind of till now, which is weird because I'm nearly 60 and all of a sudden going, oh yeah, this is cool.
It's never too late to go back to being a garbo, mate, and surfing in the afternoon. Did you have any mentors along the way that either put you straight or gave you an opportunity that...
Can I read a quote from somebody this made me laugh out loud? David Leckie. This is from the book.
So
okay,
let's just let everybody know who David Leckie is. One of the most feared, tough, but creative and just a wild leader who was
powerhouse,
an absolute powerhouse.
Yeah, from 9 to 7, who we knew well. I love this quote. Now listen to me, Larry, you little fuck. I have 100 people in this network who would crawl over broken glass and eat their own shit to do your job for free.
Was that during a negotiation?
Yeah. That was just a nice lunch. No, that was the nicest thing you ever said to me. I'd never I'd been sacked by Leckie so many times over the years at Channel 9 then at Channel 7. But we ended up being good mates. And what happened was I just realised it took a long time. But I thought one time, and when I was feeling a bit stronger because there was something else on the horizon that meant that I could, I could have the opportunity not to work there anymore. And I didn't, when you've got something to fall back on, you feel a bit braver. So we were having this discussion, this negotiation, and that is the only quote I could use in the book. The others I could not publish. That was him being polite. But, I said to him, my response to that was, mate, if you've got 100 people in this network who would crawl over broken glass and eat their own shit to do my job for free, you should get one of them to do the show. Because I think that's the sort of passion and drive you want. and what happened then it was remarkable, but it was a real moment in our relationship where he went, oh, don't be fucking stupid, mate. And he recoiled and he didn't like the pushback. But because I'd never felt brave ever in my life with him. And the negotiations were very quick and sharp and brutal always.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get. I'm going to make you famous. Shut up. Here's your money. Get out of my office. It was like that. It was like that.
Yeah, they are familiar conversations.
Yeah. But this one went back and forth a little bit, and I think he appreciated the tussle a little bit too.
Yeah.
He could see that. He said, what was the other great line? He said, "Mate, I know you got a mortgage and kids in school, and I'm just trying to look after you." And I went, David, you've sacked me 5 times, mate. You've never given a stuff about my mortgage or my kids. He went, shut up, man.
But it's so true. And so, sorry, Grant, to interrupt your question to Larry about did you have any, idols or, anybody that you looked up to. I don't think anybody realises just how tough it can be, in these roles in TV with these real big, especially, probably more so 20 years ago than today. And I just loved that David Leckie quote. But how do you have confidence when you are dealing with people like that on a daily basis?
Well, it's not on a daily basis. You would, thank goodness, thank goodness. But now after the longest time, 4 decades now, and I just go, okay, now I get it. Now I get how it works. Now I don't rely on it. Don't have to rely on it for my next meal or my next mortgage repayment. I don't. And that's given me strength along the way. But I think, generally speaking, if you're a reasonable person and you're doing a good job, and, definitely it's all about ratings, 100% in this business, as you both know. If the show's rating and people aren't saying bad things about you, and you're not breaking the law, then it's the best business in the world. It's the best job. I've got the best job in the world on both the morning show and the Chase. I just feel so lucky to be on two powerhouse shows, and so I guess that gives me strength to have those discussions. If the need arises, I suppose. But that's maybe me having every now and again having to take my humble hat off and go, hang on a sec, I'm doing all right here. but what I do, and in fact I did work out very early on that because I'm a reasonable fella, I actually can't have those conversations with people like that.
Yeah.
I could never have really until the last negotiation with a David Leckie. I could never have that. So what I did realise early on is I don't want to talk about contracts and money and conditions. I don't want to do that. I'd rather pay someone to have those lock horns like that.
Yeah.
So I do what I do. I'll host a TV show, but I don't have to sit in a boardroom and be subjected to those sorts of conversations because that's not what I do.
No, and I understand, and we're fragile people as well. We're a bit sensitive. So when the moment someone starts to, shirt front us, we're people pleasers. So we back down immediately.
And that's right. And that quote of Leckie's is true. It's true. I know that everyone in the network would love to do the morning show. It's like the best gig in the world.
Yeah.
So whether they would crawl over broken glass and eat their own shit to do it for free, I don't know.
So descriptive.
But maybe there's some dodgy characters around in television, and maybe someone would want to do that.
Maybe that's a show in itself. Welcome to the Australian Shit-Eating Championships. You've managed to cross borders, and very few presenters have ever done that in the history of Australian television. Normally, you were born on a network, you die on a network, or you never work again. But you never cross over to the other side. You've managed to go from 7 to 9 to 10 to 9 to 7. And that's a mark of the kind of person you are, because that is remarkable, and no one has ever done that before. We've got a little apprentice we're quite proud of here on the podcast, George Sargent. He's our third wheel on here, and we've taken him under our wing. What was the best advice someone's ever given you, or you give to the next generation coming through who want to make a go of it? Look,
George, hi George.
Hey Larry, nice to meet you, mate.
Mate, picked a dodgy couple of mentors there, mate. Anyway, let's take that offline. I'll give you Greg Evans' number, but anyway.
Cheers, mate.
My dad, and this is a big part of the book, my dad he was a salesman, and he'd worked for many different companies, and he'd set up their sales team, and he'd move on to the next company. And his thing was, and I came to him one day and I said, Dad, I'm having this trouble at work, asshole at work. I was a young reporter. And Dad's advice was, just be nice to everyone. Now, in the sales process, nothing much happens unless you're nice to people. Like wherever you are in the sales process, on the chain of the sales, if you're not nice to someone, that part of the process stops. So his advice was pretty simple: be nice to everyone. Like God. But try and apply that in television where there's so many dickheads. But I had to try, right? And I've tried, and I think it's the only thing, Grant, that I can think of looking back over the years. What's the constant been, and why have I? And you're right, I've managed to go from Channel 7 to Channel 10, and the day I finished on Channel 10, I ended up on Channel 9, then I went to Channel 7 the next day. So I've just had this, and I think maybe, I don't know why. It's not talent, I know that. Maybe it's because I'm cheap, but maybe I was a reasonable bloke. Like when I got sacked, I wasn't smashing glasses and swearing and yelling. I'd go up to the boss and shake their hand and say, thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds
so
silly,
nice.
it sounds silly. It just sounds stupid, right? Even thinking back over it. But I tried to work it out in this book how on earth I'm still here. I tried to work it out and I couldn't. And the only constant really is I think I've tried to be a reasonable person, a reasonable human being.
And Larry, while we're on the advice train, I remember a moment where you were on the Men's Health magazine, front cover, shirtless, ripped AF.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm starting my fitness journey too. But what was that? What was that?
He's 2 days into it. He's 2 days of going back to the gym. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
and I'm thinking of quitting. But anyway, what do I do to get through this? Because, man, you look jacked.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Firstly, this conversation got creepy quick. But anyway, what happened? What I did, okay, this was my motivation. I cut out a picture of Grant Denyer.
Me too.
On Dancing with the Stars in a pair of lycra tights, and I put it on my gym wall.
I think that you mean Tom Williams, don't you?
Yeah, I think the wrong contestant.
Tom? I said Grant. I think it was Tom. You're right. But I think what I did, I put Grant's head on Tom's body.
Okay.
It's exactly what my wife does.
Love it.
Classic.
Why did you call yourself the dog reporter?
I love that.
Why did I?
Yeah, it's because he bloody loves reporting on dogs like you, the animal reporters.
Yeah. Grant, you know this, right? This is the stuff. There's the top of the news, and then there's the back end of the news. And the back end of the news is the new baby at Taronga Zoo with a face only a mother could love, or the guy that grew a zucchini that looks like Jesus. Like, these are the stories that I love to do, because a couple of things, and you can still see this every day on the morning show and on the Chase. I have a nervous smile, right? Mm-hmm. It works on the Chase and it works on the morning show, but put that on 6 o'clock news, it's not going to work. So when I was trying to do serious news stories, I'd have this kind of, it wasn't a smile,
it's
but
a
it was
cheesy grin, isn't it?
It's just a little bit of the corners of the teeth popping out.
Yeah, I remember it well from when I was producing you for the first episode of the morning show. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. I was nervous as hell, but the smiling on that show works okay.
Yes.
So one of the cranky old news boss came in early with, mate, you're never going to be a serious news reporter with that stupid face. You'll either be a game show host or you'll sell Amway. And I'm going, okay, either of those would be fine. And I was fine with that. But what I was even happier about was I made my way to the back end of the news, which none of the other reporters wanted, because they wanted the court stories and the politics and the crime stories. But I was like down the back of the news, and I could smile every day. I was finding my own stories, and I knew those stories were making people happy. Mm. I knew those stories at the end of a tough news day gave the newsreader a reason to smile, which is super like it's important, right? Yeah. That's the bit where we feel connected to the newsreader, and it still happens to this day. They want that light story at the end. Anyway, I loved that round. I loved being the happy guy at the end of the news, and I guess that's where all of this started. I mean, I could still be in the newsroom. If I was a serious news reporter, I could still be in the newsroom reporting on serious stuff. But I'm glad that I've got this stupid, nervous, buck-tooth smile that got me out of the serious stuff.
I agree. Like when I was the weatherman for Sunrise, the best part about that is people have gone through, say, 4 minutes of harrowing, dark, heavy, sad news, and then you get to be the little ray of sunshine at the end, just after sport, to tie everything back up in a bow, lift everyone's spirits back up, and kind of, just get them back on their feet, smiling again for the next half hour. And that was always a great privilege. That felt good to do that.
Yeah.
But starting...
And I think people...
Yep.
No, go.
Starting like you did as the journo that was doing the story, mine was usually just before sport. So all the serious news had gone on. I'm the last little bit of light news before sport. And funny you should say that about Jesus. My big break at Channel 10 was I did a story on a fence at Coogee that at a certain time of the year and a certain time of day, you could see the shape of Mary in the shadow of the fence. So you laugh and you ridicule, but my best animal story, because let's face it, we both did lots of them, was a lady who had a baby horse who slept in her bed.
What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I didn't realize how weird that was until I say that out loud now. Yeah.
Yeah, classic.
The thing with, and I wrote about this in the book with the being the dog reporter, that I would always introduce myself as the dog reporter. Hi, I'm Larry. I'm the dog reporter from, when I would go and do a story. And I'll give you a very brief version, but you're familiar with the Zaria Chamberlain case, of course. They found the matinee jacket. They could never prove that a dingo took a Zaria. And years and years later, they found the matinee jacket at the base of Uluru. And this was the evidence that would basically prove that Lindy and Michael Chamberlain were innocent, right? So it was a big deal. Now, in the newsroom was going off with this story, and I was the only one there that could fly up and interview Michael Chamberlain, who was Azaria's father. And I flew up in the chopper, and we landed on his property, and I got out with the cameraman, walked up to him. He was happy to do the interview because it basically would show that they're innocent.
Yeah.
And I walked up and he said, I haven't seen you before, because he was used to dealing with all the, the Walkley Award-winning journalists, the big guys, right?
Yeah.
And I walked up and just out of habit, I just went, hi, Michael, I'm Larry, I'm the dog reporter. To the guy whose baby was taken by a dingo.
Oh, no.
So,
Jesus Christ.
Did you get kicked by the cameraman?
Yeah, so the cameraman went, and Michael Chamberlain said, "Excuse me," and I went, "Oh, have you heard there's this guy that grows a zucchini like Jesus?"
I can see the shape of Mary in the coolabah tree over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus.
I love it how you put stories like that, like real lighthearted in your book, and then you mix it in with, when you were talking about your dad. I'm going to get all emotional. In the watch chapter and talking about, winding it up on the morning of his funeral and
on his funeral. I mean, it's a very special, very, very special chapter to me, and it's a longer story, and I hope people, when they, if they see the book, I tell you what was tough, Chezzi, on the audio book, that chapter, the audio book. So when I sat down to write that, I was on my own. It took ages. I'd write a bit and then I'd walk away from it. It's about a watch that my dad got on his 21st birthday, and I found completely coincidentally on my 21st birthday, and it became my most precious possession, still is. And the story goes how the day Jai was born, I was sitting in the hospital thinking, do I have to give this baby, this watch in 21 years' time? And it's just very, very special to me. And on the day of Dad's funeral, how I wound it 21 times, because I always wound it 21 times. And it's always given me strength. It's very special to me. So when I was writing this chapter, I'd cry, I'd walk away from it, I'd come back, I'd start again, I'd leave it for a week, come back. It took me the longest time to write it because I wanted to get it word perfect. Then came time for the audio book, and man, did I struggle reading that story. It was the toughest thing. And I think, like in the audiobook, I'm sobbing as I read this, because it was a very, very, very special part of growing up, a very special part of my relationship with my late dad, and still is today. Every time I put it on, it's still that beautiful, magical reminder of our relationship. But wow, when I got to the audio book, I'm like, I never thought I'd have to say all this out loud.
And I can imagine, like, I've got tears coming down my face now. That chapter, like just the way you wrote it, just reading it, I felt all of that emotion. So.
Well, and what I loved about the watch story, it's very dear to me. It's very dear to me that not only the watch story but the chapter. Like, I love it that my kids now have got that. I finished the chapter by saying that, one thing I know for sure, Jai will wear this watch at my funeral. Like, it's just such a thread in our lives. It's so important to me. But I hope people get a chance to see that. But what I've got back, the feedback I've got, is that when people read that, these are the things people have jumped into my DMs and gone, my God, the watch story, I've got my nana's brooch, or I've got my great grandfather's monocle, something. So everyone, or not everyone, a lot of people have got this thing in their lives, and whether they wear it every day, or it's in the top drawer, it's in the bottom drawer, in the wherever it is, it's just something special from a parent or a grandparent or a great auntie or a best friend, something, So I love it that the watch has meant that chapter has meant that to different people. I love that.
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was thinking of your Uncle Wayne who gave you a watch.
Yeah, he did. I've got my uncle's one. His watch, who passed away. Is it one of those things, Larry? Is it nice I don't know about you, but when you're sort of climbing the ladder and you're racing towards a goal and you're really enjoying the opportunities that are coming your way, you tend to be very forward focused. You know, your eyes are up the road, sort of trying to plot the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I wasn't great at looking back and cataloguing the cool things that had happened along the way. So were you like that too? And did this sort of do that for you?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And I got a terrible memory anyway. But I found this old box of photos at Mum's place. And I just look at it, my sisters and I on the mini bike, which is the cover of the book. I would have forgotten about that until I saw that photo. I just went, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember Dad unbolting the bikes because they didn't fit in the boot of the car in one piece, so he had to take the wheels off and take the petrol tanks off.
Sounds very dangerous.
Put them in the boot of the Fairmont. And then we get to the Kurnell Sandhills, these little mini bikes, and we didn't have much money, so they would have been the cheapest version or whatever they were. And this vision of my dad, who was a chain smoker, and smoking eventually took his life. And in the book, I try and go, if you smoke, please try and quit smoking, because you'll see it in the book. But the irony of my dad sitting in the Kurnell Sandhills with a cigarette in his mouth, pouring the petrol into the petrol tank of the bike, and then telling my sister, you can see on the front cover, telling my sister Nikki to pull her socks up in case she falls off just so she's safe.
There's a lot of safety gear here.
Yeah, while he's smoking and pouring this, pouring the petrol in, it was like, God, there's a world of crazy memories in this stuff.
Yeah, they're great.
And then for a lot of it, like the TV stuff, I'd forgotten a lot of it. I Googled myself, and all these shows came up that I completely forgot about. Chance and Coincidence and Cash Bonanza and Very Best of the World's Worst Ads and Uncle Toby's Iron Man series. I've forgotten about all these things. So that was it was a good resource.
Did you find anything incorrect when you Googled yourself? Because we we had to Google ourselves for something, and we're like, this is not even correct.
It's funny you say that, because I found something. It's just here in your Wikipedia page. It says, Larry Endmur is a wonderful, generous lover. And you know what? That can't be right. That cannot be right.
Does it say who put the entry in? Who was it?
David Kosh.
Yeah, right.
Hey, just one thing that I had written a note down, because George is 21 and Grant has bagged him out since we first started the podcast, saying that he had blow-up dolls, or has a blow-up doll obsession. Now, in your book, for your 21st, you were given
I've just found
sex
a picture
doll
of
yes. A sex doll head that vibrated.
Yes.
I laughed out loud and woke the baby up, throwing it then into Nanny Minnie's hands accidentally. Candy the sex doll, hilarious.
Yeah, so I was at my 21st, and it was the time for the speeches. It was a toga party. Everyone was pretty drunk. And I'm up on stage in my toga, and someone threw up this, I thought it was a soccer ball. I thought it was a present. And it was the sex doll head. And it had a little cable coming out of her neck. First thing, it proved two things to me: that my friends were too cheap to buy the whole body, and because it was just a head, it would sit flat on any reasonable surface, or store neatly under the bed. But when I'd sort of shown it to everyone laughed. I threw it down to my dad, who had shuffled my dear old Nanny Minnie up to the front of the stage so she could see the speeches. And she caught it. She caught Candy, who I think was vibrating on high at that point in time. So that was just a classic moment from my 21st. And I didn't remember that until my mate sent me the photo that you can see in the book of Dobbo with me with Candy as well.
I love that. I love that photo.
Yeah. So you had the privilege, Laz, of having your family see it straight away when you first got it. I had to hide this for years.
Yeah. But now you're talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's great.
Poor
for my
George.
career.
He's had people come up to him for a long time now asking about his blow up doll fetish.
If Laz can do it,
George,
anyone can do
Do you
it.
still have it? Do you still have it?
No, I actually threw it out. Wink, wink.
Yeah, sure. That's what I said. That's what I said. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was punctured.
Okay. Oh, she's punctured.
She got the COVID jab.
Because
got
when you get your next one, George, when you get your next one, this is what I found. I had another one that my mates gave me, but I exclusively for this reason put her in the passenger seat and you can use the transit lane.
That's such good advice.
Noted.
Mate, you've been given some incredible opportunities, and you and I both have a great love of variety television. One of the greatest variety television shows that this country's ever had is Hey Hey It's Saturday. I think growing up, I was kind of raised by television, so I have a strong affinity for television, and what I love particularly about good television is the escapism aspect of it. Our lives they're difficult, times are tough, maybe you don't like your job, paying bills is a stretch, but television can be a wonderful escape from all of that, and Hey Hey does it well. You had the opportunity to step in Daryl's shoes and host that amazing television show. What was that experience like?
Well, that was quite extraordinary, I was doing Price is Right at the time. So I was in that space. I was down at Channel 9 in Melbourne. I was in and out of the corridors. And so when Daryl asked me, it was I'd been on there as a guest a few times. And when Daryl asked me, I thought, this is just like the most important, best thing that's ever happened to me. And then someone said to me, sometimes when Daryl goes away, he likes to get shit hosts in so he looks good. I'm like, okay. All right. Okay, great. So it doesn't matter. I'll do it. But the good story with this, and it's in the watch story, I believe, that because I'd always rely on the watch. I'd always put my right hand over the watch on my left wrist and take a deep breath. Whenever I was nervous or whenever I was running out before a big show, I'd always do that. So they'd sent me all the notes the day before. Because it was 2 hours live and chaotic. But they'd sent me the notes, the celebrity guests, and questions and jokes from the writers and all these suggestions. And I'd mark them up. I'd spend all night just marking them up because it was such a big break for me and I wanted to get it exactly right. So I got the highlighter pens out. I got the Post-it notes. And it ended up being like 2 or 3 inches thick, this show Bible.
Holy shit.
And I was standing out the back just before going on a minute ago. Red Simons, and I've got this big wad of paper, and the floor manager was about to take it over and put it on the host set. And Red Simons, the resident shit stirrer, walks over and goes, "Hey, Laz, what's all that?" And I said, "Mate, this is my notes for the show." And he grabbed it. He threw it up in the air. It was loose leaf. He threw it up in the air. And all my notes, all my jokes, references, everything, all my highlighted pages, questions, rained down.
Oh,
separately.
my God. You would have died.
Seconds, floor manager, 30 seconds. I'm like, you are kidding. So what I did, I put my right hand over my watch, took a deep breath and went, all right, let's go. Let's do it. But it was the best thing that could have happened. Like, it was the best thing because it's just, and that show, the beauty of that show was you're just freestyling, free falling most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what made it great. And that was one of the greatest treats. That and doing Tonight Live with Steve Vizard, I got to fill in on that a few times. That sort of show, and Grant, I know you love that genre. I'm a real fan of that stuff. And that was me in a very, very happy place. But Hey Hey was one of the greatest challenges of my career and loved every minute of it.
When I first met you, Larry, you were coming into Sunrise to fill in for David Koch. And I remember you'd come in with a similar pile of notes that you'd spent all night working on. And I remember I took you into Koch's office and I sat you down and asked you if you wanted a cup of tea. And
I didn't think we were going to talk about the casting couch. Is that a thing? Can you do that on podcast? Can you talk about
it? Absolutely. And I just remember, like, I went back to my desk and I'm writing scripts, and then the next minute you came over and you were just so polite because normally, that time of the morning people are rude, and you just came over and you're like, "Oh, excuse me, Chezzi, can I just ask a question?" And I was, "Yeah, no worries. The computer's not working." I said, the computer's not working. Oh, bloody hell. This does happen from time to time. And I go in, you've got all your notes all set out and you're all, really proper. And anyway, I don't know if you can remember this, but it cracked me up because the computer wasn't on. You hadn't put the computer on. And you'd said to me, it's not working. And so I'm looking and I'm going, oh, maybe the screen's not on. And then I said to you, did you turn it on, Larry? And you went, oh, that might help.
How we laughed at the stupid old man.
I don't know how you're not running NASA, mate, with that kind of intelligence.
And I
because
just thought,
all my jobs before that, Chezzi, I'd have people for that.
and I think that might have been the joke that you made, but I just remember walking away going, it was the funniest moment, but you were just so nice. Yeah. It was just, it was great.
I am terrible at that stuff. I'm terrible.
Talk about like having people to do that. We will let you go. I know you're a really busy man. You got tons on. You're filming episodes. You're doing book launches. You're kissing babies. You're shaking the Pope's hand. I kind of missed it, but you were there in the thick of it. That the heyday of television when it was at its biggest and most luxurious and opulent and just with dripping in money, where things were just off the chain. It was like life was limitless in TV. In the 80s and early 90s. Do you remember the days of taking the helicopter to lunch? Like when did you realise that this was a big deal?
I missed that as well. It was happening, but I wasn't in that orbit. But it was happening with other people at the time. But it was at the end of it, right? It was being phased out one host at a time as they'd kill off. That was like, oh yeah, let's get him to do the prices right. He'll do it for $1.50 an episode, and he doesn't want to chop it to get to work. Let's do that. So it was being phased out. But those, my gosh, those stories are legendary, right? Back in the, the Don Lane and the Daryl Summers and the Bert Newton back in those days, and it was keep in mind there were no streaming services. Yeah. There were 3 free-to-air channels, and the television was the thing. So something like the Don Lane Show or Hey Hey It's Saturday, they were the biggest things, not only on TV but on many people's weekly calendar. It's like I remember growing up with Hey Hey as a kid, and then when I was a teenager, like you'd have friends over, you'd watch Hey Hey, then you'd go out. It was like the most important thing in your entertainment space. Not now. Not with your Netflix and your Google and your Tinder and whatever, but back then, it was. You can see why there was a lot of money around, and it was the main game in town.
Yeah, it really was.
Absolutely.
See, back then you got the helicopter to go interview the Chamberlains. Now you'd have to hitchhike. That's the difference.
Now I would have to take the cab charge. Probably an old Channel 10 cab charge. I mean, one of my, I still got a couple of those. One of my favourite stories. Have you got time for another quick one?
Yeah.
If you do.
It was the opulence. It was the Jason Donovan story.
Yes.
And the chapter in the book is about, I was working at Channel 10. I was a reporter, but they'd get me to go out to these events at Westfield and host the events on stage, interviewing the Neighbours stars. And Kylie and Jason Donovan, Kylie Minogue were at the height. They had the music out. The show was number 1 around the world, like in the UK and Europe. It was the biggest thing. So I'd host these things at Westfield, and there'd be thousands and thousands of screaming kids and the riot squad and all this sort of stuff. Now I got talking to Jason Donovan out the back one day, and I knew he was a surfer. But he was up from Melbourne into Sydney. And I said, mate, if you ever want to go for a surf, I'm down at Bondi and I've got a garage full of boards. And he went, great, I'll come around tomorrow. I'm like, he was the biggest star in it. I'm like, well, that'd be cool, man. But I lived at home under the stairs. My parents had me living under the stairs. And he came around the next day. Now, our family, we'd never watched soap operas. Like, never. Mum, we'd never watched a frame of Neighbours. Yeah. And we went into glossy magazines. Mum hadn't seen it. Kylie and Jason were on the front of every magazine for the last year. So I'm waiting for Jason outside, and the stretch limo pulls up. And this is in Bondi in summer in our skinny street, right? So you can feel the street collapsing under this limo, this opulence and this money. And Jason gets out. I think he got out in slow motion. I think I heard Dreamweaver. I can't remember. But he got out. I said, "Oh, mate, we'll just go for a So just tell the limo driver to come back." He goes, "No, he's mine all day. He'll just wait there. This big stretch limo." I was like, "Oh man, I'll be famous." And we went inside. Mum and Dad had never seen Neighbours, right? And we go inside, and Jason Donovan, who was without a doubt the most famous man in Australia at the time, came in and said, "Mum, Dad, this is my mate Jason. He's just up from Melbourne. We're going for a surf." I thought that'd be a nice surprise for them. And Mum went, "Oh, I've got a lot of family live in Melbourne. Jason, where do you live?" And he said something. And she said, "Oh, yeah, that's not far from them. And what do you do?" And he said, I'm on TV." And she said, "What, are you a reporter like Larry?" And he said, "No, I'm an actor." And she said, "Oh, that's lovely. On anything that we would have seen." And I'm like, "Mum, it's Jason bloody Donovan.
Biggest star in the world."
She still didn't know, but she just started to play along. But it was very funny. But that was back in the day, and he would have been in the presidential suite in some hotel and had the stretch limo all day. And, there was so much money around.
So much money. Hey, Laz, when Grant broke his back, you came and sat next to him like a few times. And, I don't know if you ever realised the impact that that had, on Grant. Oh, God, we haven't slept much in the last few nights. I just like to say we've got a baby that hasn't been well, hence my voice. Oh. So we're both getting a little bit emotional now. But that was, you would come and sit with Grant. He was as high as a kite and telling all sorts of stories. And I just remember, he always felt much better after you came and sat next to him, and you told him, a lot of times that he was going to be all right. And yeah.
Well, look, I think we're a small club. It's a small club. There's not many of us. There's not many people who do what we do. I have a dental technician mate, and they go on conferences, and there's 2,000 of them. There's not many of us. There's not many of us. We can all fit on one plane to go to the Logies, and that's it. And I remember that, Grant, very well. I remember how it impacted all of us. You're one of, the most loved guys in the business, and it was horrible. It was horrible. Gosh, compared to how horrible it was for you, but for people who love you and care about you and are fans of yours, so gosh, going and sitting there and listening to your bullshit while you were stoned off your face was the least I could do. But that was, there's not many people who do what we do. It's a small club,
it was more than that. You were really genuine. You were such a genuine friend, and I want to thank you because I don't think that we've ever really spoken about that. It allowed me, when you sat there with him, it allowed me to go home and have a shower and then come back in a wig carrying, groceries, trying to get away from the news reporters. But it just, it was a very genuine thing to do, and you're a really good guy, Larry. We have a lot of time for you.
Little did we know that we'd let the dog reporter into our hospital room.
And little did you know that he was only coming in the hope to get tapped out the front.
No, brother, that was a really a difficult time. I was very scared. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I didn't know, what the walking situation was going to be, what the working situation was going to be, and just the comfort that you gave me by just putting your hand around me and just saying everything's going to be okay actually did the world of difference to my confidence and my mindset. So. And not only that, we've had a few falls and a few tumbles in our personal life and career, and you've always been the first person to jump on the phone and just ask if we're okay. Because what most people do is they run the opposite direction. If you're under fire, and maybe you've done something, or maybe something's been reported that's a bit embarrassing, everyone tends to run away from you, and you do the opposite. So thank you, mate, because you have a huge heart.
Well, that's you don't have to thank me for that, guys. It's part of who we are, and it's part of what we do, and I know you would do the same for me.
Bloody oath, mate. So
you would. So everybody go and buy Larry's book.
Happy as Larry Endmur. You'll see me spruiking it at the front of Martin Place for 7 days a week as part of my contract of doing this podcast with him. Mate, best of luck. I've really enjoyed the chat. I know we sling a lot of shit at each other to make each other laugh, but it's actually nice to have a really healthy, hearty chat with you, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, really, really appreciate your time. And George, the sooner you can get away from them, the better.
I think we're losing you, Larry. The signal's dropping out. All the best, buddy.
We love you,
Laz.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, what a bloke, eh? What a bloody bloke.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the book, Happy as Larry Endmur.
Legend.
And look, my cheeks are hurting so much from smiling through that entire thing.
I
Wow.
know. He genuinely is the nicest guy on TV. And I just saw, did you see that?
No. What was it?
It was
The
an
orb?
orb on your screen, George.
Oh,
I saw it too.
Did you see it as well?
No,
Wow.
well,
Yeah, I saw it. But it's just a common occurrence now on this podcast.
Well, it
isn't
is.
We're
We've got
spiritual
ghosts
people.
everywhere.
We're just welcoming them into our lives. Maybe it's the ghost that's going to help you through your next gym session. So when you're feeling burnt out like those thighs, or feel like the lactic acid's building up and you can't do it anymore, maybe that orb is going to come and land on your shoulder and give you superhuman power.
It gives me strength. Can I honestly say it is a struggle to put my headphones on with my arms. And you know those gym guys who really walk out real buff and have their arms like in a sort of square motion? This is me now.
Wow.
I'm walking like that.
It might feel like it, but it certainly doesn't look like it just yet. But don't give up. Hang in there.
Classic.
Go you.
I will.
That was a really nice chat. In fact, we need to catch up with Larry more because we don't. Well, we live in the country and he lives in.
He reaches out all the time, though.
Yeah, he
lovely.
does.
I learn a lot of my work ethic from him. You know, I think if you can, in terms of being an employee, if you can make yourself the person that people want to have around, that's 2/3 of the battle. And then just be better than everyone else. That's the last one. and
cheaper.
Cheaper.
But I worked pretty closely with him when I was line producing, with the morning show, and I worked with him every single day. And I've worked with a lot of people in the industry. He's definitely not the run of the mill.
No, he's not.
Very special.
Yeah.
And I, have all the time in the world for him.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the chat as well. That was good fun. Enjoyed that.
It was good. Okay, I've got a screaming baby and our eldest daughter is knocking on the door. So.
You can sign off, and next week we'll come back and George will do Crunches live on our YouTube channel.
Hopefully I'm still kicking, guys. Love you.
Love you.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on It's All True.
Woo!
It's All True, the podcast with Grant and Chezzi Denyer.
Bye bye.